What's good, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Land Grant Podcast Network's I-80 Football Show. As always, I'm your host, Jordan. I'm here with my co-host, Dante.
How's it going, man?
Man, I'm chilling. Um, I'm bored already,
Not on
which
board.
is which is crazy because I've been watching Unrivaled, which is really fun, and I found where you can tell I'm bored because I was about to tell you about this TV show I'm watching because that's what we talk about in the off season. I'm actually watching TV again. Um, I I started this new, so like I don't know if you know this, but some people know this. I'm like obsessed with the wrong word, but I'm more than interested in like Mormon and Mormonism, largely just because like how do I say this without being mean about it?
Uh-oh.
It's just interesting. There's a
Mm,
lot of like embedded racism
I can believe it.
and a lot of like of all like of if you look statistically, right, a lot of cults are Mormon.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of and maybe a lot is the wrong word because there's a percentage of religious murders in the 90s and up that are also related to Mormon, like and a part of the interest comes from like I would just turn on a documentary on Netflix or Hulu or HBO or anywhere, and for like 3-4 months straight, every single documentary I watched was about Mormons, and it wouldn't even have anything to do with it. Literally, I was watching one about this mom who like it was like the evil in her some shit. It was just about a mom who went crazy, and midway through the documentary, they're like, "Oh yeah, she converted to Mormonism midway through, and then ended up like killing her kids or something." So like these are long story, but what I'm saying is there's a new TV show on Netflix called American Primeval, and it's set in the time of like when people were moving west, and so
Mhm.
it's set in the time when Mormons were being chased out of Ohio. If you did not know this, Mormonism started in Ohio when they were being
Oh
chased out of
no.
Ohio and were trying to settle in Utah, and at the time there was essentially a three-way war between Mormons, the United States government and the United States Army and the Native Americans.
For that area of
And
Utah.
yeah, essentially, and because like Mormons were like they were trying to say, they were essentially saying that they weren't a part of the United States. Like they were trying to run Utah as its own territory. There's a whole lot of history behind that. They had to make a bunch of concessions to even be considered a part of the United States. They killed a bunch of people. This is real
Um,
history. Like there was like it was crazy. There's a lot going on. But
I did not know that.
yeah, it's a TV show that's kind of like set in that time period, and like Brigham Young is in it, and different things like that.
Mm.
And I'm telling you, I was texting my friend about it, and I was like, "Yeah, I've been watching the show. I'm like 15 minutes into the second episode, and like 50 people have died." And immediately after I send the text message, there's dialogue, and it said there was an attack, and 70 people were killed. And I was like,
Oh
"Oh,
my god.
I grossly misunderestimated. It's actually over 100." So like, it's super violent because like um, at that time, right, they were killing Native Americans, and the Mormons were killing the U.S. Army, and the Army was killing the Mormons, and all this stuff. But and the entire show is not just about killing, although I would say it's about 55%. But I've been watching that, but yeah, this is a long way of saying I'm bored because football is not on. Um,
There is literally
and
football.
social media is dying.
And we about to get spring ball. We
Yeah,
about
but
to get
I
that,
mean,
that
it's not there today. You asked me how I'm doing today after 4 minutes. How are you doing after I went? Took over.
oh my gosh. I'm good. I've been doing good. I've been watching some anime. I caught up on My Hero. Uh that anime is hilarious because it's like they give they give everybody these nice moments, and then the villain is like, and like nice little power up. They doing everything. They working as a team. It's like it's all cool, and the villain just goes, "Don't care." I'm like, oh, what? Who's writing this? This is crazy. But yeah, I've just been doing that lately. Just been watching anime and watching wrestling, of course.
How do
Royal
you?
Rumble is this Saturday. It's about to be hilarious.
Is it
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Yep. I was gonna go, but we all know what happened there. Next year, I'm going. Wait, maybe not.
Is
I think next year is in Dubai or something like
that's
that.
one that's in Cleveland? Where's
No,
it
it's
at?
in Indianapolis this year. Oh, it froze for me.
One of us is. All right, we're back. We were having some sort of internet or technological
Yeah,
problem, so that's abruptly went to the ads, but hopefully we don't have any problems from here on out.
should be good.
Yeah, I'll take this quick moment to say after the unexpected ad break, be sure to follow us on social media at Get Defensive Sports Network, specifically on YouTube. Even if you don't watch on YouTube, we are trying to get a little bit of a following up. If you could give us a like and a subscribe, share with your friends. Everybody has a YouTube, even if they're not on it. So,
Yeah,
and I looked at our numbers recently. There's a decent amount of people that listen to this podcast, which means none of y'all are on the YouTube because there's not a decent amount of people on our
yeah.
YouTube. So if you got 5 seconds, give us a little subscribe on Get
Just
Defensive
hit the.
Sports
It's
Network.
free. It's
Yeah,
free. It take like 2 seconds just to click and leave.
that's it. We're not asking for
Mm,
too much. We're not asking for
No.
a whole lot. But okay, so you were saying something about Royal Rumble, and then
Royal Rumble. Yeah, Royal Rumble is this Saturday. It's in Indianapolis this year. That's why I was going to go because it's not far. Indianapolis is only like 2 hours away. So I was
yeah.
going to go, but not this year. Then I said I was going to go next year, but I think it's in like Dubai or something next year. So
Ooh, yeah, not. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you got that, but
no,
not not.
no, I don't. It'd be
um,
nice, but no.
Probably should have saved this for your pit stop. But how do you feel about Netflix? Have you watched it? Did you get Netflix for wrestling? Or are you watching? Are you only watching SmackDown?
It's definitely a money thing. It's a cash grab. Cash grab. Uh,
Is it not
I
good,
think.
or you just
I no, the broadcast is fine. The broadcast is fine. Like it shows up fine. I don't have a Netflix, but I watch it on like through my friend. And I would just say that commercial breaks are awkward. So it's like I don't you've been to a live sporting event, but I don't know if you've ever been to a wrestling. You've never been to wrestling, but you could
mm-mm.
tell. Like I can always tell when a commercial break is supposed to be happening because they just do random promos out of the blue. Just
Okay?
yeah, and it's like extremely random. It kind of cuts up the timing. So that's the only thing I have because like some people, I guess it's like some people have ad free Netflix and some people don't. I don't know how Netflix works. I don't know if there's ads or not, but you could tell that there's an ad break going on, and it's very awkward where they're placing them. I think the only thing I think it being on Netflix is bad though because most of like it's easier. I think it was easier to watch when it was on cable than it is now that it's on Netflix. Because a lot of people did give up Netflix. So and then it's kind of, you're just making people get Netflix, which is something I never wanted to do.
Yeah, I didn't see all of the numbers and things because who cares? But I did see that Netflix had like a crazy increase in subscribers, and of course it's going to drop off. But for the NFL, they had a big increase, and I imagine that wrestling is also a part of it. Like just kind of like in that end of the year going into January. I mean, they had the NFL on Christmas, and then they had starting right after the New Year. I think it was they had wrestling, so
Yeah,
they were bragging about like a huge jump in subscriptions.
it's like you kind of force people into getting a subscription.
Yeah, basically. Um, So to go into our traffic update, we have a couple pieces of news. One of them I'm only going to mention because it's literally a segment, like a topic later. I just want to say it up front because it is news. Penn State has hired Ohio State defensive coordinator Jim Knowles to be their defensive coordinator. They are paying him 3.1, an average, I believe, of $3.1 million a year. That is an insane contract for a coordinator.
It
Everyone is
is.
talking about, like, is the money going to go down? It's not. The highest paid coordinator I think before him was 2.5, so they gave him a $600,000 increase and beat out all the offers. And there's some other things, like I don't believe this was about money. He tried to talk about in his introduction at Penn State, he tried to talk about growing up a Penn State fan, and I'm not saying that he didn't, but he always talks about he's from Philly, and I get it, Pennsylvania, Penn State. Like, I'm not saying that he is not a Penn State fan. I just think it's hard as hell to get to Penn State, even from Philly. So, like, I don't think this was this, like, sort of dream job. I think there's a lot of kind of rumors and things going around about um and it's the truth is always somewhere in the middle, right? Maybe
Yeah.
Ohio State didn't pay well enough. Maybe it was also partially a dream job. But then at the same time, there was talking about, like, beef with the defensive line coach, Larry Johnson, as well as not appreciating the fact that Ryan Day kind of stepped into his room after the Oregon game. And my thing is, like, I was giving him hella credit for changing the defense after the Oregon game. But if he was doing that because he was forced by the head coach and it worked, I'd get the fuck over it. But clearly, if any of those rumors are true, he didn't. So it's probably somewhere in the middle. And that, yes, Penn State paid him a lot, and he was probably mad at Ryan Day, and Penn State's a dream job. But the funniest thing about it, and this is why I know that he's lying, they won't directly say it, but a lot of the reports are basically hinting at the fact that he called Penn State. Maybe not him directly, but his agent called Penn State, because Penn literally, and this is the funniest thing, because critical thinking, I'm going to talk about that here in a second. When you read the quotes, they say that Penn State was going to promote Anthony Poindexter, who is their safeties coach and co-DC, because they didn't want to lose him. And then they're like, the quote basically says something like, when Franklin went to Poindexter, Poindexter said, "Oh, wow, we can get Knowles?" Like, it's a surprise to everyone. Not like, oh yeah, I'm calling him. If he doesn't take the job, I'm gonna give you the job. It's like, no, this is your job. And then you get a call and it's like, hey dog, I'm interested. And you go to the DC like, hey, I know we were gonna give you this job, but Jim Knowles called us. And the DC's like, oh wow, we can get Knowles, and decided to just take a pay raise in the co-DC. So it's just like, well, you critically think, I don't think Penn State pulled Jim Knowles from Ohio State. I think Jim Knowles wanted to leave.
A win is a win.
It means nothing to me, right?
He said a win is a win for them.
It means nothing to me. Ohio State won a national championship. There's nothing. Look, let me not lie. There are very few things that Ryan Day or Ohio State can do to piss me off until the Michigan game. You don't get a pass on that one. You can, like that, but I'm. It took 10 years for this. I'm celebrating this national championship. I am not going to get mad about a coordinator leaving. And I tweeted this. I don't talk about Michigan a lot, like, in my personal life. Obviously on this podcast, and I dog them a lot because it's fun. But I was like, Michigan lost their 90% of their staff, most of their an overwhelming amount of their good players.
True.
And so it's just like, if you compare the two of them, right? Ohio State lost a defensive coordinator. They lost their seniors. They were going to lose them anyway. Michigan lost them. But Ohio State lost a defensive coordinator. They kept their best players in the transfer portal. They still have their head coach. They still have the offensive coordinator for now. They have all of the support staff, whereas Michigan had to start all over. And I say that, but Michigan's not the only one that's had to start over, right? Other than that, like, Washington got to the national championship, lost their head coach, lost 20 of their 22 starters. So it's just like, I'm not going to cry about this because Ohio State is still in a better place than a lot of national champions because they didn't get rated as much as others. So, like, there's a bunch of Ohio State fans that are upset and crying and mad. I'm just like, we just want a natty, bro. I'm fine.
Oh, I'm sure you're
I
fine.
don't wish him all the best. Literally, the only thing that's annoying about it is I would have wished he went to Notre Dame or OU. Like, it
Mm.
sucks that he went to Penn State,
Yeah, it's gonna
but
be.
like, other than that, I don't care. But yeah, any we're
It's an interesting hire. I can't even lie. I
yeah,
didn't see that coming, and I don't think anyone really did.
no, definitely not. But it is what it is. Next, which is also semi an Ohio State topic, but I don't have an opinion on this because I already gave this opinion on my other podcast. You should listen to it. I just want your opinion if you have one. How do you feel about tampering in college football? The start of this, if for those of you who are not paying attention or are not Ohio State fan or don't listen to the other podcasts, essentially immediately after the national championship, there were reports that Oregon, Tennessee, some of these other programs we're offering up to $4.5 million for Jeremiah Smith to go into the transfer portal. They're
Oh,
offering upwards of $1 million for Carnell Tate, another Ohio State wide receiver, to go in the portal. I
oh
did
my!
not see figures, but they were also offering a lot of money for Ohio State corner Jermaine Matthews to go into the portal. For those of you who just aren't super familiar with the Ohio State's roster, Carnell Tate, it was the third wide receiver who had like 700 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's obviously going to be the number 2 wide receiver next year. Jermaine Matthews started as the third corner, but by the end of the season, it was a 3-man rotation where they played about equal snaps, and he played almost all of the Texas game because Denzel Burke got injured. So like was a legitimate starter this year, basically after halfway through the season. And so a bunch of people were crying and tampering and rules and regulations on so that kind of stuff. If you want my further thoughts, again, listen to my other podcast, Power 2 Podcast, on YouTube and on the same feed. But my brief thoughts before I turn it over to you is step your money up. And Ohio State stepped their money up.
They trying
They
to.
didn't lose them because they stepped their money up. Like I get it, tampering's a thing, but just step your money up. Ohio State did it. They didn't lose. They didn't lose the players. Do you have any thoughts on just because this is going to go on forever? Tampering, people trying to get them in the portal. How do you feel about tampering in college football?
I think it's interesting. It definitely gives a sport within the sport itself. I don't I don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal, or at least it's not. It's not surprising. I expected this, honestly, for people to try to like. I mean, we saw it with getting the Michigan getting that quarterback from LSU and things like that. Like
That's not officially tampering because he wasn't in college yet.
right, sure. Like I'm not surprised by any of this. There's no real rule against it because the NIL and all this is new. And if anything, this is just shows how incompetent the NCAA is, in my opinion. Because you knew for a decade this was coming, and you had no plan in place for anything of this nature. So of course, schools are going to try to do whatever they can to poach players from other schools. It happens. It's pretty much free agency.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised by any of this. If anything, this just shows me how incompetent the NCAA is.
And my thing is, it's just like, it doesn't matter who you are. Jeremiah Smith has 2 years left. You're not going to call? Like, you're not going to, you know what I mean? Like,
Why
Ohio
wouldn't
State,
I?
like,
Players are
like
leaving all over the place all the time
make
for
him say
any of
no.
reason.
Make him say no.
Yeah,
Like you don't owe Ohio State anything. And if
at
Ohio
all.
State would have lost Jeremiah Smith because they didn't want to pay for him, I'd have dogged them. I
That's
wouldn't have been like, oh no,
it's what you get.
Oregon stole Jeremiah Smith. No,
No,
Ohio
like
State, step your money up.
Ohio
Brokey, what are you
State,
doing?
like Oregon didn't steal. Ohio State lost. That's what
Yeah,
that would be. Like I until there's a rule in place, I don't
yeah,
see anything wrong with I don't
that's
there's
what the money's
three
for.
there yeah, I mean you get 3 years at least. Of course I'm gonna try to get the best. I mean, we were just talking about how much money Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State spent on their rosters.
Yeah.
You didn't think they were gonna do it again?
I just think, the thing that I thought was funny, just like from the Ohio State fan perspective, is that everyone was talking about Ohio State spending $20 million roster, $20 million roster, and then immediately after that, they're talking about $4.5 million for one player, and I'm like, so y'all who are talking shit, Oregon fans and other people, y'all's teams were offering a fourth of that to one player. So if you were going to if let's say you got him and you gave him 4.5, what is the rest of your roster at? Like, you're not, if you're giving him 4.5, I can tell you for sure you're not under 20 mil.
No.
So I thought that was
again, funny. I think in my eyes, that's just the whole, or it's not. I mean, if it would have worked for me, I wouldn't have said nothing. Like, everybody's going to complain because it worked for Ohio State. It's just like when Deshaun Watson was on the market. Everybody was like, "Ooh, the Browns, y'all really did that," even though half the league was trying to sign Deshaun Watson. It's like, of course, everybody was going to do it. Everybody's going to spend it, but they were doing it before.
Yeah.
Before it was okay to do it. They were doing it then. Yeah. That's why there was some transfers, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Because they paid that kid. Like, that's why. Come on, man.
And yeah, I know for me in particular, I can't be a hypocrite where I believe that NIL should mainly only potentially go to players who have earned it on the field. I just don't believe in giving a whole lot of money to an 18-year-old that you've never seen play at this level. How many kids have you seen not be good?
Yeah.
And so, okay. Well, now we know Jeremiah Smith is good. So yeah, I'm calling. Like,
the only thing that makes sense to me,
I'm calling. Yeah. What do you mean?
You earn the money you make is like through jersey sales and merchandise. That would be the only thing that would make sense. Like, you earn what you make. That would be the only thing. Other than that,
honestly, I think so. NIL is not going anywhere. I think what I would suggest is, and it's not possible. It's definitely not possible. But like, in theory, right? Or what I would do at my school, I would set a budget. I would say quarterbacks, 500,000. Not that much, but just throwing them. Let's a quarterback out of high school, $200,000. A running back, $75,000. Offensive lineman, $125,000. Defensive end, $150,000. Like, whatever the number is. And it's like, if you come here, this is what you are going to make. If you don't play a single snap here, this is the base. This is what we pay this position. Everyone's getting NIL. Then when you get a Jeremiah Smith, who you know immediately, right, he's going to be one of them ones. Everyone knew that Jeremiah Smith was going to be one of, if not the best wide receiver as a freshman. Then maybe you give him a little bit more to try to come to your school, right? But there's one or two players a year potentially that is worth that. Everyone else, you get what you get. And then as you start to play, you earn more. And if you turn into a captain, if you turn into a first round pick, if you turn into 1,000-yard back, if you turn into, or just you turn into a starter, it increases, and you start to make what you're worth, which is what's going to happen in general, right? Like, we're going to see Jeremiah Smith in commercials. Why? Because of what he just did. Nobody was putting him in commercials before, maybe locally in Columbus, but nobody was putting him in commercials because he hadn't done anything. Will Howard, nobody was putting him in commercials. He's winning the national championship. He immediately gets a Dr. Pepper commercial. So, like, your money goes up as you earn it. I get that there's got to be a base level, but I say that to say, like, Jeremiah Smith earned it. So there are 132 schools. Kent State should have called about Jeremiah Smith. I don't know where the money was coming from, but I'd have called. What are we talking about? I'd have called. Hey, you want to come to Northeast Ohio? We'll figure it out.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
we will let you own the Canes. Like, we will let, like, you are now the owner of the Canes. Like that's how we're gonna pay you.
I look at it like this too, because it's like, schools have been poaching players for the longest. It's just it wasn't that big of a complaint because there wasn't money involved. I'm sure when Jalen Hurts was transferring from Alabama, Oklahoma wasn't the only school that wanted him and just didn't get him.
Yeah,
it'd be ridiculous if they were like, Oklahoma stole him from us. What? Like, no, like they gave him an offer. They made him a pitch that he liked. Now this pitch comes with money legally. That's all
Yeah,
it is.
crazy. I don't
Uh,
know. I don't care. I'm glad you don't care either. Um,
I'm surprised it just started. I'm surprised the
I,
complaints just started.
I think it was just because like national championship, right? So the only players that can go into the portal are Ohio State and Notre Dame players because everyone else is done.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ohio State won, so you have these players. So the sole focus is how much these players are getting offered. But like in December, right? You know, like Carson Beck went to Miami, and they basically said that they basically like doubled his NIL. Like he's making like $3 million to be the quarterback at Miami.
Yeah,
That wasn't tampering.
right. We ain't
Literally, he was Carson Beck was in the
nobody from
NFL
Penn
draft.
State school,
Carson,
nobody from all those other schools got any calls.
yeah,
Like, come
Carson Beck
on.
was literally going to the NFL draft. That was the expectation. He
Mm-hmm.
announced on, let's just say, because I don't remember the exact day, he announced on Tuesday that he was coming back to college. On Wednesday, he was at Miami. You telling me he didn't have that deal with Miami before he decided to draw his name from the
Yeah,
NFL
because
draft?
there's no reason because and there's no reason to
Yeah. So,
if
you know,
that deal's not on the table.
step your money up. Don't be broke. If you have a good player, pay for him or lose him. That's how I feel. I just realized that almost all of these were Ohio State, at least semi-related. But I think again, national champion. That's kind of what's in the news. I'll be very brief on. There's been a whole lot of conversation about Ohio State because they were operating at a $37 million deficit or something like that, and everybody's just like, oh my god, oh my god. I'm like, first of all, wait until you see what these other programs are operating at. The only reason I bring this up is for one thing and one thing only. Please, and this is not going to happen, but this is our podcast. I can say what I want to. Please, when you see news reports, can you read it and can you think critically? I read the news report. Not first off, don't care about money that's not yours. Don't care that Jeremiah Smith's getting 4.5. Don't care that Ohio State is operating at a $37 million budget. Why are we talking about this? But the funny thing about it is I'm reading it and they literally explained exactly where the deficit came from. And the funniest part is like everyone kept attributing it to the $20 million roster, but they clearly don't know how schools work. This was for the 23-24 year, which ended in June.
Mm-hmm.
So like everyone's like $20 million roster. It's like, no. That's the wrong budget year. The year with the $20 million roster is still happening. But anyways, I just thought it was funny because they were basically like, yeah, here's the reason for the deficit. In 2023, we had 6 home games instead of 8. We lost $19 million. In 2022, we had 8. We like those 2 extra games, $19 million. They said we had a $9 million buyout for a basketball coach. That puts you at like 28 million. And then they had to pay 2 million for Chip Kelly. That puts you at 30. And then just other ins and outs, stadium infrastructure, things like whatever, right? And so I'm just like, I'm just reading this article. This math makes sense. Everybody's like either laughing about it or dogging Ohio State. Ohio State fans are mad at the AD for throwing out the number. I'm like, he didn't throw out the number. It clearly says they got this from a public records request.
I was about to say, isn't that
Because
public?
it is. And so when you
It's
call
public
and
financing.
yeah, it's like you have to have these numbers. So that's all I wanted to say. 1, stop caring about money that has nothing to do with you. And 2, please think critically. And especially, I'm gonna just be as
We can look that up.
literally. I just thought it was just like, please read the article, think critically, actually understand what's going on. And first of all, understand that this is not even this year. It was 23-24 that ended. Like Ohio State fans are like, oh, Ross Bjork, all that. And I'm like, I'm not going to defend Ross Bjork, but clearly the 2023-24 year was under Gene Smith. Like this isn't even the new AD's budget yet.
Nope.
That budget's still happening. He's had that budget for 6 months, July to January. So please, in this offseason, with the transfer portal, with all of these things, all of these stories, all of this news, and then also in real life, as Donald Trump releases 6 news statements a day, please remember to think critically and to actually figure out what's going on and just stop being so reactionary. Like it's not helpful. And clearly Ohio State not broke. They kept Jeremiah Smith.
Oh my god.
All right, so trying to try something new, I guess. It's not a hard name, but we're gonna move to our road trip segment, which is just our off-season segment of basically like we're just hitting the road and we're gonna talk about what we talk about. We're gonna stop at a couple. We're gonna do whatever. We road trip and we just talk about something. This is our section where the things may be a little bit longer, although somehow our news was really long. So that was not supposed to be the case. Sometimes it happens. Just kind of open-ended question, open thoughts. The season's over. How do you feel? Anything, everything. Big Ten. What it like? We don't have to move on to the off season soon, so this is the time, start to finish. Where are you at with the 2024 college football season in the Big Ten?
Honestly, it was another year of football. I don't think anything that spectacular or whatever. It was another good year of football for the Big Ten, especially since 2 years in a row now the Big Ten has national champions. I won finally.
Had to let you get one so you didn't quit the podcast.
Oh, that's what it was?
Yeah, you know.
That's what it was? I don't know. I think your Ohio State pride got into you winning in that case.
All I got to say is I went 3-0 and Ohio State didn't get a natty. I lost, Ohio State got a natty. That was my sacrifice. That was me. That's why I'm a part of this national championship. That was me. I sacrificed on this podcast so Ohio State could get up.
As a delusional fan myself, I understand where you're coming from, and I'm not mad at it. It's just hilarious. It's like, it makes sense to me. The math is mathing. I did. I also would say that this season, like I said, probably was the most. Even though I say it was another year of football and another year of good football, it was one of the most competitive seasons. Like I said, it would be because now and because of NIL, it's going to be a lot more parity. Like even now, I don't. Because of NIL and stuff like that, I don't think unless they get in serious trouble, Michigan won't be down and out for that long. They almost made a bowl game, even though or did they?
They did make a bowl game.
They did make a yeah. You're right. They made a bowl game and won their bowl game, even though they lost everything. So I didn't think they were going to be able to keep at a level keel this year, but I don't think it'll be long before they can turn it around, and we're going to see a lot more turnover coming into next year's. We're going to just see players going any and everywhere, especially if you get like don't let somebody get upset with playing time, even though they're great and they're getting a lot of playing time, they're still going to leave and stuff. But all in all, I think it was just a really good season of football for the Big Ten.
Yeah, I agree. The Big Ten is always fun.
Actually, not even just the Big Ten.
Yeah, but this is a Big Ten show. We don't care about those people. We don't care about the rest of college football.
I don't know. No. I was about to say, what conference Arizona State?
Big 12.
Okay.
You gotta think about it at this point. All the conference realignment. It used to just jump off the screen. It used to just be boom boom. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now it's just
I don't know nothing.
They went here and borrowed $3, and then they took their $3 and bought 6 apples, and then they stole the apples and went to this conference, and then that conference bought the apple tree. Like what the hell? Like yeah. So they're in the Big 12.
Okay. That was good. I think that was good for football. Seeing Notre Dame get pretty far was good for football. Other teams, and even though the SEC had a lot of big talking, the fact that it wasn't the stereotypical Alabama, Georgia in the college playoffs, it was nice to see so many different teams. And then I know people are going to complain, like especially that first round, but it still produced some of the most exciting college football for playoffs in recent memory. Like I think it was just as exciting right around like when they first introduced the playoffs, like those first 2 years of how exciting it was. This is I think we're gonna keep having that type of excitement for at least 3 or 4 more years until they go, all right, we're gonna do 30 teams.
Please, no. Too many. Way too many.
Yeah.
I think so I think 12 is the perfect number.
I think it is too.
You could argue, you could maybe convince me that if you go to 14, only 2 teams get buys instead of 4. And you could maybe interest me in that. Maybe. But anything more than that's dumb. Like if you're like only 2 teams get by, so there's an extra game. And of course they have to fix the calendar because the calendar's crazy. But there's an extra game. So it's 12 games total in the playoffs instead of 11. Only the top 2 teams get buys. I'm like, okay, I would listen. And if you provided enough, you could maybe convince me. But there is not a single thing that anyone in the world could say to convince me that it needed to go above 14.
No, 14 above 14 is way too much. I also want to say I think the media, especially the big brand media, like people like Kirk Herbstreit and all that, I think they were trying to, in their talk, was trying to diminish what the 12-team playoff was, and how they went about it, how they were talking about Indiana and all those other teams. I think they were trying to down, like I said, diminish the 12-team playoff and be like, see, this is why we shouldn't have done this. Keep it to 4, or even if they were going to do 6 or something like that. Like it shouldn't have been that many. Only certain teams should be there. And I think people like that, like I think the old heads have to accept it because again, we got to see a multitude of different teams, and they played well. Penn State played well for 2 games. Actually, got 3 games.
Yeah, because they played well all 3 games.
Yeah, and the whole time people kept saying that they deserve to be in there. Just watch what they do when they get in there, and they played well in every single game. We don't get Texas, Arizona State.
Mm-mm.
If you complete, because again, no one had any complete. We talked about Indiana and all those schools, but we get Arizona State gives Texas a run for their money.
Yep.
And it was a great game. We don't even get that if you do that. We don't get to see Notre Dame legit almost make a comeback in the national championship if we don't have this, because they're not making the playoffs because they're not in the conference. You're going to do SEC Big Ten and then be like, ACC, I guess. Stuff like that. We might see we'll get another chance. Maybe Indiana shows us something next year. Indiana could be Arizona State and be even better. Like you never know. You could give I think something like this gives the USC a literal shot at this in the Big Ten.
Yeah. When they fire Lincoln Riley, I'm not with you on
but
that.
Like no,
Lincoln's
but you know what I mean. There's certain,
I know. I agree with you. Just not on USC. Lincoln's not going to get it done
because I don't think Oklahoma was going to make it. At least they might do it one time, but they don't get the amount of chances they do without this change in the play.
So I think that one. I think you're just missing your history. Lincoln Riley made it through the 14 playoff 3 times with Oklahoma.
Lincoln Riley.
Yeah.
But
you were talking about USC. Did I mishear you?
No, I said but I'm saying without. I'm talking about now, current times. Now that Lincoln Riley's not at Oklahoma, I don't think Oklahoma makes it.
Oh no, they got to fire their coach too.
Yeah, but I'm saying it gives teams chances to show what they can do.
Yeah,
and now you can create even more parity. and they might be able to make more money to create more parity. I can probably sneak that 4-star away from somebody just because you saw me in the playoffs and I make some more money. Now I can offer you $4 million.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things, right? Like, I don't believe that there's going to be this huge sort of parity, right? I don't believe that there's going to be this major shift in the sport, but the shift to the Big Ten being able to win two and it's not all the SEC, that's kind of where I think the shift is going to go. Instead of there being 4 teams in a given year that can win a natty, there's going to be 8 that can win a natty, and there's going to be 14, 16, 18 that are deserving to be into the playoffs. I don't think it's going to affect Team 20. It's not going to affect Team 25. It's definitely not going to affect Team 50. But instead of it just being Ohio State, Bama, Georgia, and then when LSU has a good class or something like that, Michigan gets in there, Penn State, Notre Dame.
Schools take the regular season a lot more
like,
serious. Now games in the regular season become more entertaining. Now something like Indiana and Ohio State, how anticipated it was this past season, it can become a regular thing.
And that's the funniest thing, that people are saying that the regular season means less. And it's like, this is how, anytime people say that, I know for a fact they only pay attention to the top of the sport. Because yes, Ohio State was able to lose 2 games. Yes, Ohio State was able to lose to Michigan. I've said on this podcast and other podcasts for years, even before that this was rumored, that it made no sense to me that the only sport in the world that required perfection was college football. Baseball, basketball, college football, college baseball. Maybe the only other one is college wrestling, but that's a 1v1 sport. Like, that one's different. I mean, that's a 1v1. Those champs are crazy and be like 40-0. But like, college football is one of the only sports in the world that require perfection. The NFL can go to 14 of 32 teams in the playoffs. The NBA can go to essentially 20 of 30 teams in the playoffs. Everyone can expand and do all these things. And so I always felt like
never expanded.
I agree. I always felt like that there should be more. And so, okay, fine. Ohio State losing to Oregon didn't end their chances. It never should have. But when you say that the regular season doesn't matter, do you not remember the last 4 weeks of the Big 12 where every week 2 teams changed in we didn't know the Big 12 title picture until the last week because Kansas State decided to
the Big Ten. Hold on, the Big Ten title picture wasn't decided until 2 weeks before.
It wasn't decided until the Michigan game. It was the last week. But I'm not even just talking about that. But I mean, I'm more like the Big 12 is even more to me because Kansas decided they wanted to play again, and they beat 3 teams and knocked 3 teams out of the title game. Arizona State doesn't make it to the playoffs if Kansas doesn't beat Colorado, Kansas State, and another team for them to even be able to make it there. When Kansas's run started, Arizona State was like the 5 seed. Nobody was thinking about them, and then Kansas just knocked teams off. Arizona State gets in and they win. They get into the playoffs, and then they do that to Texas. So like, anyone saying like the regular season matters less, you're only looking at Ohio State, you're only looking at Bama, you're only looking at Georgia, you're only looking at the fact that even they can lose 1 or 2 games and still get in.
And you're still looking at it wrong. You're still looking at it
bad. And that's what I'm saying. You're like,
because think about Alabama. They got lackadaisical. There was one of those teams where it's like, oh, the regular season doesn't matter until it did.
Yeah.
Until it did. And now you're playing against Michigan in a bowl game and you still lost.
And it's
so 3 games can either have you in there or have you out. And it's like, you should have won your games. It makes every game a lot more interesting.
And Alabama's the perfect one because 10-2 Alabama gets in. 10-2 Alabama probably gets in over 11-1 Indiana, but they lost 3 games. You can't lose the 3rd game. And so it's just like, yes, it's different because
2 of those games were like you were dominated in.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, it's different because we used to require perfection, but it's not like the regular season still matters. It's still important. It's still fun.
And the thing is, like, we require perfection, and that's what made college, especially the national championship, coming up with theories and coming up with contenders, so boring because since you knew you had to be perfect, only certain schools could get
as soon as the team
to be perfect.
Yeah. I mean, think about it, right? Notre Dame season, even just last year, Notre Dame season's over after they lose to Northern Illinois.
Yep.
That is one major brand that you just don't have to think about. And so, yeah, you didn't think about Notre Dame for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. But then when they get to 10, when they 9-11, 9-1, 9-1, and there's a couple games left, and you're like, man, they start to climb up the rankings, and you're like, is Notre Dame going to do it? Now I got to tune back in to Notre Dame. Now I'm watching Notre Dame USC, right? We already mentioned Arizona State, Colorado, right? Colorado was at a point where it's like, hold on,
Yeah.
Colorado only has 2 losses. Like if they can get to the Big 12 championship, Colorado's going to get in.
Mm-hmm.
You have Syracuse was in the mix for a while, Miami, right? Of course, SMU made it, Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
Since I watch a lot of football, we do this podcast. I can't tell you the last time I thought about 4 ACC teams at once.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just so like I'm sorry, like if you feel like the regular season didn't like
Because like if you really sitting here thinking about the regular season doesn't matter, think about last year how if what's the name from Boise has that season and then it still means absolutely nothing.
It's cool, but he doesn't get to do it on the biggest stage. He doesn't get to do it in the playoffs.
So like cool, you ran for 2,000 some yards and that's it.
And then he's probably not going to play. Maybe he plays in the bowl game because it's Boise State, but he's probably not going to play in the bowl game because he's getting ready for the draft. He wants to be a first-round pick. Yeah. So I think that this was a really fun season for the Big Ten. Shout out to the Big Ten for winning back-to-back.
It's weird to say that the season doesn't matter. And one of the biggest reasons, and I think one of the basic example for it expanding was how Penn State every season has a good season and just doesn't get a chance.
And literally their season never mattered. As soon as they lost to Ohio State, their season was over.
Season was done. It never mattered. But now you can have that loss. You might, or you still don't want that loss, but you know that loss doesn't really legit ruin your season. Doesn't end your season. At week 7,
Penn State lost to Ohio State. Penn State lost to Ohio State again. And then made the Big Ten championship.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, yeah, no, I think for me, it's what do people call it? Like a dog whistle or whatever. Anytime I hear someone say that the regular season means less, I'm just like, yeah, that's because you only focus on the sport and from the lens of Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia, and you want your champion to be 12-0, and you don't care about the Notre Dames, the Penn States, the Arizona States,
and those 12
and these are still big brands. Like those Tennessee made the playoffs.
Yeah, and those 12-0 teams can lose on that any given Saturday. Oregon was undefeated, lost.
Mm-hmm. And you can't tell me that it doesn't matter when Tennessee had somewhere between 20 and 30,000 fans come to Ohio State for their first playoff game. And I mean, their first playoff game ever, but also their first like really big bowl game since what? Like Peyton Manning was there?
Vince Young.
Vince Young is not Tennessee. That's Texas.
Was Vince Young Texas? Okay, then yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or burnt orange, and in the South with the T. But yes, Vince Young is Texas. Because he was in the Texas USC game in the 05 or whatever the hell it was, whatever year that was. Vince Young is Texas.
Okay.
Peyton Manning's Tennessee.
Yeah. Okay. Why?
It was the burnt.
Somebody got to change.
Yeah.
But I do that a lot, and you're like, and every time you're like, no, that's Texas. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're right, it's Texas. But for some reason, I want to say Tennessee.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so no, I think it was.
That was the first time Texas had something big in some time.
Second, they made the playoffs last year.
You're right, yeah.
But I mean, still, like, that's 2 years of Texas in the playoffs, of Texas one game away from the national championship. Like, and this year was harder because they had to win 2 games to get there. You know what I mean? Yep. So it's just, 2 games because they didn't win the SEC. 2 games to get there. So it's just, I don't know. I don't know how you can tell me it wasn't fun. I don't know how you can tell me the regular season didn't matter. I enjoyed it, loved it for the Big Ten.
There's matchup.
Um,
Oregon, Ohio State was important week 3.
yeah,
I don't know when that game was.
it
I
was
know,
week 6, but yeah.
but like that's the beginning of the season.
And we're still talking about like the top of the level. Nebraska's chase for 6 wins. They
Mm-hmm.
win like 4 or 5 straight, lose a bunch, and then they get it at like the second to last game and like a
Penn State
blowout.
USC was exciting because
Yeah,
Penn
like
State was on the brink of losing that game and maybe losing their chance of
it
finally
looked
making the playoffs. Like
UCLA looked like they were going to go 1-11, and then they went on a run and upset 2 or 3 teams, and then they made it to where Rutgers looked like they weren't even going to make a bowl game after losing to UCLA. Like
mhm.
there's so many things that happen. Patrick Mahomes Jr. You like, I just don't know how you. I don't know how you can tell me that the regular season didn't matter. It was very fun, and honestly, the worst part is going into the off season and having to be bored, basically. Yeah, so moving on, Michigan is trying to fight their notice of allegations. I think the funniest thing about Michigan supposedly fighting these notice of allegations is Michigan essentially what Michigan said was, I cheated, but you said I slept with 4 girls. I only slept with 2. You exaggerate. You making me seem like a worse person. You telling everybody I slept with 4 girls. I only slept with 2. I only cheated on you twice, not 4 times. And that's supposed to fix the fact that you cheated.
What I got from that, what I actually got from that is the South Park joke. I misinterpreted the rules. That's that's what I got from it.
I don't really watch South Park. I just thought it was funny. And there's a couple of things I just want to read from this. And obviously more will come out of it.
That's when they were making fun of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick cheating.
Okay.
He's like, I misinterpreted the rules. And he said, just keep repeating that.
Yeah, it's like, so literally, hold on, what did they say? They said, first of all, as a part of the kind of news of the important part of it, Michigan is not going to negotiate, which is a bad idea. That's a bad idea. They're not going to negotiate, so they're essentially going to take whatever is given. They're going to try to fight it, but without negotiating, they really don't have much power. But essentially, there's a couple of things that I want to read from this. One of them, the school purports that the sign stealing offered minimal relevance to competition, was not credibly proven by the NCAA investigators, and should be treated by a minor violation. That's them saying, yeah, I only cheated twice. I didn't cheat 4 times. Like, I did cheat, but why are you saying I cheated more than I did? I could have cheated more. I could have cheted more.
If anything, it's like there's like, yeah, we cheated, but it didn't even work. So
literally, that's what they're trying to say.
It didn't even work. So what are we even doing here? Like, what's the point?
It's and so it's
basically, like, in my eyes, almost I could see why they would say that, because it's not like they dominated and blew out teams and stuff like that.
Yes, they did. That's exactly what they did after almost firing their coach. That's why I will never believe the fact that they said that it didn't work. I know enough about football to know that it did. I'm not stupid. They can try to convince everyone else that it didn't work. You can believe it didn't work. I could go.
That's how it comes off. They're trying to say like it didn't even really work for real.
Right, but this is the first time
it was a waste of our time.
Yeah, this is the first time that they've even admitted that it happened. And so basically, one of the other quotes is, the school requests that the NCAA apply common sense and commitment to fairness and treat the case not as a serious level 1 infraction, but as a level 2 standard case. No. What? No. Like, there's a lot of things in this. Another one is Michigan and all of their like media members and message board people were basically trying to say that Ryan Day's brother is the reason that this happened. It comes out in this report that it was actually a former Michigan staffer, because of course it was. Why would you really believe that Ryan Day's brother snitched on Michigan to the NCAA? That doesn't make any sense. So that was dumb. So it was definitely a
Weirder
tip
things
for
have happened
Michigan.
in sports, I guess.
Man, listen, I don't know. But essentially, all of Michigan's response is essentially that it didn't happen. If it did happen, it didn't
It didn't
help.
even work.
And if it did help, you can't prove it. So you should give us a slap on the wrist. That is their
If they can prove that to be a thing, like I'm not mad at it, like because if they really don't really have real proof to prove that it worked, I don't know. It's just hilarious.
I mean, but the thing is, it was never about like Michigan's trying to make it about it. Did it work or not? That's not the rules. The rules is did you do it, and they did it. And then this is the last thing that I'll say because there's a lot in this article, and all of it is stupid. Sharon Moore deletes 52 text messages from Stallions. I actually have one more thing to say, but Sharon Moore deletes 52 text messages from Stallions. Guess why he supposedly deleted it? This is what he said. So, and to be clear, he deleted it on the day the news broke. And this is why he deleted it. I deleted all the information, all Connor, on my personal phone. And it wasn't to hide anything. It was just that I was just extremely angry of, the type of person who would do that to this program and these kids. Because we all know when you're angry, the first thing you do is delete text messages.
I'm angry at that person. Yeah, I'm cutting everything off. Cutting them out of my life. The text message thread is gone.
I was so angry, just extremely angry that on the day this came out and I knew that they would want my phone, I just deleted everything out of anger. Because gosh darn it, Connor Stallions, why would you do this to Michigan and these kids?
To these kids.
Yep. Definitely gonna believe that. I mean, that is so true. So true. I 100% believe that that's.
I'm sure he was so disappointed for them kids.
Yeah, sure he was. The kids that finally beat Michigan and finally beat Ohio State and made it to the national championship and won. So disappointed in those kids and the cheating scandal that he clearly knew nothing about, even though there are texts that were deleted that refer to it.
He knew nothing about it.
Couldn't have. And it's hilarious. And then, so this is the last thing that I want to say. That Michigan refutes the NCAA's assertion that it failed to monitor its football program in light of the Stallion scheme, especially after at least 2 members of the football program raised concerns about Stallion's process for deciphering opponents. According to the NCAA, the information was not reported to compliance for further review and or willfully ignored so as not to learn about the potential violations. One of these members was then running backs coach Mike Hart, who told NCAA investigators he received a call in September 2023 from a Rutgers staff member who told him that Michigan was stealing signs and going further than most do. Hart brought attention to this call to then defensive coordinator Jesse Minter. The Rutgers staff mentioned Stallions specifically. Last one, Michael Neiman, a low-level Michigan staffer, raised concerns about Stallion's sign stealing system and refused to be a part of it when Stallions wanted him to rent a car to scout a football program at Georgia, a football game at Georgia, a team Michigan could have eventually played in the playoffs, but a team not on the program schedule, making it permissible to scout them according to UM's response. All right, so it didn't happen. We didn't know about it. But we
were told about it.
We were told about it, but we didn't take it to compliance. So it didn't happen. We had no idea what's happening. But you can't tell us you can't tell us that we failed to monitor the program because 2 of our coaches knew about it and they complained about it. But then we didn't do anything when they complained, but we didn't know it happened.
Well, I see what the plan is. It's because the NCAA is usually bad at this. They're trying to confuse them, so they fuck up. I see it.
They're literally just throwing crap at a wall and hoping it sticks.
And and because the NCAA is so bad at their job, it could work.
It's not going to.
It's not going to. But I see their plan. I understand the plan.
for sure. It's not going to work. So we are not doing an hour and a half shows in the off season. So I'm going to skip our next topic. We'll talk about it next week. Do you have any thoughts on the playoffs? The games that happen? We can save the Super Bowl for next week because it's in 3 weeks. But
yeah, I have one thing to say. I have one thing to say. Two things. Maybe like Commanders. They're going to be scary for the future.
Yes,
for the foreseeable future, they're going to be really, really scary.
Brian Kelly's a war criminal. Literally sorry to interrupt you, but literally 3 of the offensive rookie of the year candidates were all on the team with Jaden Daniels at LSU, and he couldn't even win the SEC or get to the playoffs. But go ahead. and then 3 years after leaving, Notre Dame to the national championship. Brian Kelly's a war criminal and should be treated as such.
Yeah. Dave Gettleman is an idiot, and so is Jerry Jones.
Dave Gettleman
is the general manager or the owner of the Giants. I can't remember.
Oh, the one that didn't need Saquon. Boy,
and so is Jerry Jones because Saquon and Derrick Henry. They only talk about Derrick Henry. Both Saquon and Derrick Henry were both interested in talking or playing for Dallas, and Jerry Jones said, "No."
We're gonna run with Tony Pollard
and Ezekiel Elliott, dog.
Not after Ohio State won a national championship. There's no Zeke slander on this podcast.
I don't care. It made no sense, and you know it. It made zero sense.
I won't speak a bad word about Zeke until February. March. February's Black History Month. March.
Anyway.
March is my birthday month. April.
And
I got you in April. We can talk about Zeke in April.
and third, if Lamar Jackson is a bum, Josh Allen is the bummiest of bums.
Oh, Justin Herbert, but
second. No, because I don't think Justin Herbert is on that level. Justin Herbert's not getting MVP talks.
All right, fair enough.
Whereas Josh Allen is every single year, and we keep trying to say Josh Allen is,
and he's gonna win it this year, even though it's Lamar's MVP.
We'll see.
I don't believe they're not gonna vote for him.
Yeah. So Shannon Sharp said something today or yesterday. There is some players. There are just some players. I think Ray Lewis, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Lawrence Taylor. They just, even though you are so prepared and you're so great, they somehow instill fear in, they can beat you. It's not whether you don't know if you always can beat them, but for some odd reason, you know for a fact they can beat you. That might have been Josh Allen's best playoff game, besides the 4 fumbles, because they fumbled 4 times. They just never lost them, but they fumbled 4 times. But that's arguably one of Josh Allen's best games. It means nothing. That man is that good. And it's because everybody keeps saying everybody stepped up. It's because that man is so good that it makes you confident in yourself that you can make the play. And because that man is so good on the other team, you I know he's gonna make the play. So you tighten up and you mess up your play.
When is the last time Patrick Mahomes hasn't made a play in the playoffs? You can talk about the regular season, you can do all these things. What Patrick Mahomes for 2 straight years had the longest scramble basically of his career in the playoffs after tweaking his ankle and barely being able to walk,
or messing up his knee this time.
And then they need 5 yards, he gets 30.
Mm-hmm.
And then gets up and limps because he's legitimately hurt. But Patrick Mahomes in clutch runs a 4.3. Every other time it's like a 4.7. But when it's clutch time, somehow he runs a 4.3.
He's gone. And again, it's something about a player like that, because again, it's not like the Chiefs were that spectacular. It's just that you got that man on the other. He just Shannon Sharp said like some players just instill fear in that other team, whether you're ready or not. And Patrick Mahomes does that. You know he is that good that you get scared like I can't mess up because if I do, it's over. I think the Chiefs won the game after the first 2-point conversion stop. When they stopped them for that first 2-point conversion, game was over. I knew they were going to win that game because you're missing points. You're missing points.
I never once felt like the Chiefs weren't going to win after the third quarter. I think they were down like 10 or something. They get it, and then like you said, the 2-point convert, and the score starts to change. I'm like, yeah, okay, they're going to win. Mm-hmm. Like even if they score here and the Chiefs get the ball last, they're gonna win.
Chiefs is the thing is even with their third and outs, the Chiefs were moving the ball with ease.
Yeah,
with ease. It didn't look whatever the Bills did in the regular season didn't matter. The Chiefs knew exactly what to do to beat them. Knew exactly what to do to beat them.
My only thing about this game, and it's funny because you mentioned Shannon Sharp, and I typically try to like scroll through Twitter really quickly, like when we're on the show, to see if there's anything that I missed that we should talk about in the show, just because, I'd be missing things. And I didn't listen to it, of course, because we're recording, but I saw him basically talking about how that wasn't a first down. And I think the funniest thing about this, about people saying that was a first down, is one, and the camera angle that everyone's pointing at, you can't see where the marker is. I get that it's technically probably on the 40. You can't see where the marker is. The camera angle is behind them and at an angle. And also, everyone's ignoring the fact that the ball has to get past the first down.
The ball was right here.
He turns his back.
He did this.
And it's like this.
And get hit. It's just like this, holding the ball.
So going not like a first this, down. Essentially, for where the ball is, for that to be a first down, he has to be waist to helmet past
over the line. He has to be over
ball, because the ball is at his chest.
Because if he would have did this real quick, maybe but then he would have fumbled. He probably would have fumbled.
Probably. So it's like, no, that like, I'm sorry, you can do the like, I'm not here to defend the Chiefs. I'm never here to defend the Chiefs. But that wasn't the first down. Why like, and I'm sorry. I grew up in the era, we're not even that old. I grew up in the era where my coaches always said, don't let the refs win or lose you a game. How did you get stopped? Even it was inches. Even if you got the inches, you didn't get a yard. If you would have got a full yard, it wouldn't have been in question. How did you get stopped on a QB sneak in inches? You can't even stop a QB sneak in the video game. You legitimately got stopped. You got stopped so much that you had to turn your back. You are 6'5", 240, and you had to turn your back. That is the push that they got.
The craziest part about that is that, and that's the difference between Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, right? Patrick Mahomes would have done it. You got me twice. If I'm doing this for a third time, I'm not doing it the exact same way you stopped me those last 2 times. They knew Josh Allen liked to go. They kept saying it on the broadcast that Josh Allen likes to go to the left on his QB sneaks. Stopped him every single time. Stopped him every single time. Go to the right.
Yeah.
Go to the right. Fake the QB sneak.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen that work before when you fake it, tops fast. Fake the QB sneak something, but you kept going straight. You can't win the game. You can't make the play to win the game.
Yeah. I just thought that was funny. Like, I'm just like, I just need y'all to remember the basic rules of football. It's the ball.
It's the ball, not his body.
He should not have turned around. You can't turn around in that position. You literally have to.
You know what's funny about that? The game in the regular season, he ran everybody over. He threw it in the Chiefs game. He was throwing his head down. That's exactly what you should have done there. You get the first down if you do that.
Probably, yeah.
The one time they got it right is when they jumped over. He just jumped over it.
Well, it's an inch. Why didn't you do that?
And you didn't do that. You didn't do it a second time. You went to the left again. They know what you want to do. If I know for a fact this man, he's not going to change his mind about this. They kept saying it. Sometimes Patrick Mahomes is one of those players that he's going to make the play, and that's even changing how he does something to be able to make the play. You decided to not change your routine on how you did your QB sneaks. You lost the game.
Yeah. And this is my own little personal kind of plea. I don't know the statistics on it. I don't think speeding up for 4th and inches ever works.
What do you mean?
Like,
Like the
like,
hurry
like,
up?
yeah. I don't think
Oh,
it works. It almost never works in big
it
moments. I
it's
really
usually
just
they
feel
only doing
like,
that to get somebody to jump off sides most of the time.
yeah, like get set. Allow your players to get set. Put their hands and their feet in the ground so they can get a push. They barely are there, and you're trying to get them to block. I don't like that. I don't like the rush. I don't think it allows your players to get set. And if you're going to do what they already know that you're going to do, you should put yourself in a position to give yourself the best chance.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, I get the thought of like, well, if you can't get set, they can't get set. Yeah, but the difference is your people have to push. All they have to do is lay on the ground. Like literally, they take out the knees and the linebackers come over the top.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot easier to do. You don't need to be set for that. You are trying to push and get tight, and I don't like that. That's my last thing. But we have a Chiefs Eagles Super Bowl. We'll talk about that in 2 weeks because the Super Bowl is forever away somehow. But
I do want to say, because I know Sammy's going to listen to this. You were out of your mind to say that Chiefs Bills game was not going to be entertaining. It was a very entertaining game, and I know you don't like success when it's continuous, but you gotta stop being a hater. Because I know if this was the Browns,
says a hater.
I'm just
When a
I am.
when a hater tells you to
Hey,
stop
but
being
I'm
a
just saying,
hater, you gotta look at
like,
the
because
thing.
I'm just saying this: if the Browns were going to their fifth or fifth or sixth Super Bowl in 7 years, she ain't boring to me. This is like, come on, this you have to be impressed by this continuance of dominance. It's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, and my thing is just like, it is what it is. We have a lot of time to hate Patrick Mahomes if we want to eventually. I think everyone compares them to like the Patriots, but the difference is like the Patriots were
This is a
literally the evil dynasty. Like there was a lot
yeah.
of reasons to hate them outside of them winning. But I'm sorry, we've never had a three-peat in the NFL. I think that's cool.
I'll
I
tell
like
you right now. I'll tell you right now. The fact that they even there has been no dynasty that has ever made it to 3 championships in a row. Besides this team. No one is
the
anybody
Patriots
who's
didn't make it to 3 in a row.
no, they didn't make it to 3. They
Okay.
went back to back and didn't make it to the third
I
one.
kind of assumed they made it to 3 and like lost one, won one, and so they didn't get the three-peat. But yeah,
No,
okay.
they've never made it to 3 in a row. This is the first team to ever do so.
Crazy.
In the Super Bowl era. Because I know people are going to bring up, well, when it was called the championship. Because Mad Dog tried to say that the Packers won 3 in a row. They won 3 championships in a row. We're talking about Super Bowls.
There's like 12 teams.
We're talking about Super Bowls.
All right. We're going to wrap up. As always, as you all know, we're going to go into our pit stops. This is the I-80 football show. We are on a road trip down I-80, and your pit stop is when you have to take a break. This is our time to talk about something that is not related to the Big Ten, sometimes not even related to football. There's nothing on the sheet. Do you have a pit stop?
I don't. I do not have a pit stop.
I have one for all of us, for both of us. Read a book. That is my thing. I started reading it. Oh, Jesus Christ. I started reading again pretty heavily last year. And I know so many people who are like, man, I just wish I had the time to read. I've been wanting to read. I haven't read for leisure in a very long time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Especially as you get to our age, around our 30s, as Twitter starts to be less fun, nobody wants to go on Blue Sky. TikTok is getting banned. Instagram, you go on Instagram and you don't even see your friends.
I feel like a lot of people are on Blue Sky.
Whatever, Dante. You're not wrong, but I'm on a roll. As all of these things are happening, as all of these depressing things are going on, well, depressing for some, I guess, but all these depressing things and the changes in the world and all this sort of stuff, maybe get off social media, get off YouTube, get off a podcast for a little bit. Not this one, but we only drop once a week. There's 6 other days. Read a book, find a book. I'm not even going to tell you that you have to read a nonfiction book. I've been reading a lot of fiction books. Just read a book. Stimulate the mind.
Smut.
Oh God!
No, you know what's funny?
You know what's book too. I guess.
You know what's funny is that it's a whole series, and the further she gets into the series, the less smut there is. I was like, it
Not
tricked
they
you.
tricked
I
him.
was like, they
Not
tricked
they
you into
tricked him.
reading a
Yeah.
real story.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm fucking into it.
That's hilarious. But yeah, that's my pitch stop. Read a book, stimulate the mind, stimulate your critical thinking, and maybe who knows? After you read a couple fiction books, maybe you'll throw in that nonfiction. You'll actually learn something. But read a book. It's time, and also the kids can't read, and the kids can't read partially because the adults aren't reading. And kids mimic adults. If you are on your phone all the time and you never pick up a book, they never gonna pick up a book either. So pick up a book, and we will see you next week. Thanks for listening.